My name is Mrs. Gustafson, and I am the Director of Theater Arts at Rudder Middle School. I know that my students already know that, and so they're probably sitting there going, yeah. But there are several other schools tuning into this, and so feel free to call me Miss G. That's what my students call me because I know that my last name is kind of hard to pronounce. So, we are going to kind of continue a little tradition that my students and I usually practice on Mondays called Musical Monday. And what this is every Monday I choose a musical to introduce to my students. We talk about it. We talk about kind of the logistics of it, who wrote it, who choreographed it, who won awards for it, and then we watch a short clip from a performance from it. And then we kind of discuss it a little bit. So we're going to continue that tradition now that we are learning long distance. So welcome to your first long distance theater lesson. I'm not as thrilled to be here as I should be because I would much rather be with you in person. But we got to do what we got to do. So let's get started. What is a musical? A musical is a play in which singing and dancing are accompanied with spoken word to kind of push that plot along. And it originated in the early 20th century. It was kind of an adaptation of some light operas. And so from that, we get different musicals, one of which is Come From Away. So I am going to talk to you about, I'm going to give you a brief summary of the plot of Come From Away, give you a little bit of historical background, and then we're going to talk about, like I said, the logistics, kind of who created it, how it came to be, and then I'll give you some reflection questions and kind of ask you to think on a couple of different things, and then I will send you a link to watch a performance from the original cast on YouTube. Excuse me. So the story of Come From Away is it's the retelling of a story of the small town of Gander, Newfoundland, which is a Canadian province. So in Canada, they don't have states; they have provinces, and it's the story of the people in that town as well as the crew and passengers of 38 different commercial flights, and those flights were told to land immediately in Gander, Newfoundland, after the attacks of September 11th, 2001 began. Uh, so the cast of Come From Away. Oh, sorry. Before I get to that, I want to point out real quick the population of Gander, Newfoundland, at the time of this story was just less than 13,000 people, which I know sounds like a lot, but keep in mind that in San Antonio alone, there are more than 2 million people, which is a lot. Really, when you think about it, 13,000 people isn't really very many. At Rudder, we have over 1,000 students, like just barely over 1,000 students. So if you took Rudder, multiplied it by 13, roughly, that seems like a lot of people. But really, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, it's not a ton. But once you've brought in 28 different commercial airline flights, a typical commercial airliner can hold between 2 and 300 people. So on September 11th, 2001, an additional 7,000 people landed in Gander, Newfoundland. So it doubled, or not doubled, but my kids will tell you I'm not good at math. Sorry. It took the population and upped it by about 50%. So think about that. What do you do with that many extra people? Can you imagine, like, close your eyes real quick. Think about a party that you're throwing at your house or your apartment. Let's say your house can comfortably fit like 20 people, right? And now we're going to add 10 extra people to that party that you had no idea you had no idea that they were coming. Where are they going to sleep? Where are they going to eat? And they're going to be there for about a week. So you have to worry about those things. They didn't bring, any clothes with them. They did, but they're in their car and they can't go to their car. Because once these flights were landed in Newfoundland, they couldn't go back to the planes because there were terrorist attacks happening. They didn't know what was going on. That was the reason that they grounded all the flights after 9/11. So, the people in Gander had to figure out, how are we going to feed all these people? How are we going to clothe all these people? What are we going to do with them for, however long they're going to be here? Because at the time, they didn't know. They didn't know if it would be a day or a week or a month. Like we didn't know. So the cast of Come From Away is 12 people, 6 females and 6 males. And these actors take on multiple roles. Nobody plays just one character. Everybody plays three, four, five, six characters. And so they have to do, costume changes. They have to change their accents because people in Newfoundland speak a little bit differently than we do here in Texas. And they each effectively have to, convince the audience that they are each one of these different people. I was lucky enough to see this show a few weeks ago when it toured through San Antonio. And it's amazing how just a simple change of your accent or putting on a different shirt or throwing on a hat really does change your perspective of an actor as they are portraying these different roles. You really do forget that it's just 12 people because all in all, they tell the story of, I want to say it's like 30 to 40 different people. It's really, really indifferent. It's very impressive. So this cast of 12 tells the story of some of the townspeople in Gander, as well as some of the 7,000 people that landed in Gander after 9/11, or as a result of 9/11. So they were stranded from all over the world. It's not like it was just people from America. 9/11 is one of those historical events that impacted the entire world. Can you think of any other historical events right now that might be impacting the entire world? Hmm, I can. That's why we're long distance learning. That's called a tie-in. It's fun. Um, so they have to anyway. These cast of 12, they take all these different stories and they tell them to the audience in just under 2 hours. And there's no intermission in the show. And typically in a musical, there's 2 acts, and so there's a little break in the middle that's about 15 minutes long where you can kind of get up and stretch your legs and go get some fresh air and talk to your friends or the people around you about what you thought about the first act and what do you think is going to happen in act 2 and those kinds of things. But Come From Away doesn't have an intermission at all. It's what we would call a one act musical, but it's not a one act like in the sense that you guys are used to a one act. I know we just got out of one act play season, and so in your minds you're probably thinking it's 7 minute setup, 7 minute strike, 40 minutes or less. No, it's a shorter musical, but it's not like our one act plays. So they essentially take all these different stories and they convey them to the audience using different staging of pretty simple set pieces, things like chairs and tables. And that's pretty much it. And they tell the story of these people who were stranded and the people that helped them. And it's a nice, refreshing, heartwarming story about people coming together to help one another out in times of crisis. Um, and I think we can all figure out where this is going, right? We'll get there. So, um, real quick, I know you guys probably don't know a whole lot about September 11th. I was about your age on September 11th. I was a freshman in high school, and it was really kind of one of those things that makes you really sit back and think. The world changed quite a bit, and the way that we reacted to things, and how we lived our everyday lives changed for a little while. We were a lot more cautious, and we were nobody really trusted anybody for a while, except we were all much nicer to one another because we had a shared bond. And the week that followed September 11th was kind of serene and peaceful because everyone just wanted to make sure everybody was okay. And I think that there's a lot of that going on right now. I know that a lot of my students have been connecting with one another and making sure that everybody's all right. And I know that you guys have seen in the communities that everybody's making sure everyone else has food and toilet paper, and that, we're all practicing social distancing, being 6 feet apart, making sure that we're washing our hands. We're not going out in public right now. And so there's a lot of correlations or connections that we can make from this play and the story and the lessons that we can learn to kind of what we're all living through right now. Um, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. We don't know when we're going back to school. We don't know when people are going back to work. We don't know when we're going to get to go shopping at HEB like normal. We don't know when we're going to get to go on vacation and do all these things. And that's the way that it was after September 11th. And that's the story of Come From Away. And so even though there may not be a definite end in sight for all of this right now, we can look at stories like Come From Away for hope. We can take these stories of these people who were thrown for a loop and their normal was completely turned topsy-turvy upside down, and we can connect them back to the things that we're experiencing now. And so what I'm going to ask for you to do is, at the conclusion of this video, I want you to click on the second link, and I want you to watch the video that I have shared with you. And I want you to make sure that you watch that performance. And I want you to think about a couple of things. I want you to listen to the lyrics, listen to the words that they're singing. The song that you're gonna end up seeing it's one of the final numbers in the show, and the passengers are back on the plane after having been in Newfoundland. They are finally being told that they can go back home. They've been stranded in this country that they've never been to before, in this teeny tiny little island. Kind of like you're stranded in your teeny tiny little house right now, and we're all going stir crazy. This is the second time I recorded this video, because do you see that door? My daughter came through that door a little bit earlier, just going blah, going crazy. These people were also stranded, just like we're all stranded right now. And eventually they get to go home and they get to resume their normal, which I know we all desperately want right now. And so the song that you're going to see is them coming back home, and them, talking about how excited they are, and how, they're so thankful for all these people that helped them in their time of need. And I want you to think about that. I want you to really listen to what they're saying. If you need to watch the performance 2 or 3 times, you have the luxury of doing that because you're at home. So go ahead and do that. Make some notes, write down some words or some sentences that stick out to you. Google the lyrics. Print them out, highlight it. Like, this really impacted me. This is, why did they say this? What about, what else happening here? How can we link the feelings and emotions that the people on the plane are feeling with what we're feeling today? There are some of them talking about, how thankful they are, and how nervous they are to go back to real life. And I think that those are some emotions that we could all probably connect back to our current situations too. What is the historical value in telling stories like Come From Away? Why do those stories need to continue to be told? What kind of impact do stories like Come From Away have on society? Excuse me. What kind of lessons can we learn from things like this? Uh, I'm sure your teachers have taught you, as I try to instill in my students, that theater is a way of community, and it's how we connect with one another. We connect by telling stories, and everybody tells stories, and you get different meanings out of them. But how can we relate some of the lyrics from the song that you're watching? How can you relate them back to what you're thinking about and feeling today? And I want you to write at least 4 sentences. You don't have to answer any of the questions that I've asked you. Those are just to get you to it's a jumping off point. But I want you to write at least 4 sentences and provide a reflection in your Google Classroom to, for my students, like the classroom that you have set up with me, and for the students at all the other schools, make sure that you're putting it in a doc and uploading that into Classroom, and putting that for your teacher. But why is it important that we continue to tell these stories? What sort of benefit do we get as a society and as individuals from stories that tell the everyday reactions of people just going through things that they never really asked to be put into? But what can we learn from them? So think about those kinds of things for me. And I want you to make sure that you provide at least 4 sentences, please. Really quickly, the book, lyrics, and music were all written by Irene Sankoff and David Hine. The production for Come From Away was awarded a Tony Award for Best Director in 2017, and it opened on Broadway on March the 12th, 2017. So like I said, it's a pretty relatively young musical. It's only been open for about 3 years. It is still running on Broadway in New York, and it is currently touring in various places around the world. I know right now it's for sure on tour in North America because, like I said, it was just in San Antonio about 3 weeks ago. Um, as a matter of fact, the Austin and I want to say Houston, it might have been Dallas though. But anyway, the two other Texas legs of the tour were postponed because of the COVID virus that's going around right now that we're all protecting ourselves against. So, definitely a relevant story, definitely a relevant musical. And so now I want you to reflect a little bit, think about the questions that we're asking you, listen to the lyrics, listen to the words that the people are telling you that they're experiencing, listen to the emotion and the different feelings that are happening. What kind of thoughts do you think are going through their head? If you wanted to provide a pretend journal entry or something, you could do that for your reflection as well. How can you link the events that they discuss in Come From Away back to what's going on in our lives right now? And what is the historical value? And why is it important for us to continue telling these stories? Make sure you put that in a Google Doc and get it uploaded into Classroom. Please don't share it with us. It blows up our email. I think I can very safely speak on behalf of all of the other teachers and say, we miss you guys like crazy. We're all very anxious to get back to school. Please take care of yourselves. Um, Take care of your families. I hope you have fun with this lesson. I hope you have fun doing our little bingo assignment for this week. I hope to see you real soon.